I don't believe in sharing your feelings in order to appeal to a bully, because the whole point of a bully, or what creates a bully, is an inability to process their own feelings, and then they project it onto other people and they weaponize it against others. Hello, angels, baddies, and bitches. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Amber Akilla. You can follow me on all the things, and the videos for this are also posted on my podcast, Friend Crush with Amber Akilla. I hope everyone's doing well. I've had a month of absence, but I appreciate your support and everyone messaging me and sending in topic requests, your comments, and your support on the channel. I'm very grateful for. I rearranged this room, so we're back with Lindsay. Freedom is being in charge of your own destruction. I'm thinking of doing like a serial killer wall in the back here, which is just me pinning a bunch of different notes and inspiration that I might have for future content and projects. We'll get there. Okay, I hope everyone's doing well. Today's topic is girl on girl crime, being bullied by women. What happens when your besties turn on you, or a bestie turns on you? Something that I've come to accept as I've gotten older is that some friends are for a reason, other friends are for a season, and you don't need to fight the fact that your compatibility with someone in a particular relationship of any kind, friends, even family, work, etc. People are changing all the time. Things are changing all the time. It's not trying to resist change. It's how can you embrace change, okay? And change can be for better or for worse, but I always think that I'm gonna be okay, and eventually it will make sense as to why it was best for me, that this change that right now feels really fucked up, it's gonna make sense later. We're in the business of being hot and having fun, cute, chaotic, and critical thinking. All these things can coexist. So it's crazy because I feel like from a young age, I always wanted to connect and empower. Being a minority in a very white area and not really feeling like I had community, feeling like my interests weren't really the interests of people around me. My life's pursuit up until now has been finding out how I can communicate who I am and connect with people over shared interests or shared values. Okay, that's a key. I feel like when I was younger, I didn't feel like I had any stakes in competition with the girls around me because I was just so different. My family background was different, my ethnicity was different, my interests were different. Even though I was friends with a lot of the popular white girls, I never really felt like I was in competition with them. And I think that kind of sheltered me from experiencing or really understanding women and women dynamics.
I actually did experience female bullying, passive aggressive behavior, and jealousy when I was a teenager. I completely forgot about it. I didn't realize at the time that that's what it was, because the girl who was like bullying me or trying to ostracize me was objectively so much more privileged than me. So I couldn't understand why they were trying to come for me or felt threatened by me. So I didn't think of it as like, this girl is jealous of me as a girl. I thought of it as like, this girl is just being crazy. Like, what's happening? In reality, they were very insecure and felt threatened by me being friends with people that they were friends with, and thinking that it was like a competition, or that I was trying to like compete for people's attention or friendship, which is not the case. Like, I could honestly give less than two fucks. But when you are unbothered, you become a mirror to other people's botheredness. So it doesn't actually really help to know why people act the way they do sometimes, because it ultimately has nothing to do with you. You know, you're just a mirror for their insecurities, and there's nothing you can really do about that.
Until I got older and being in Shanghai, where I am Asian like everybody else, and how there can be competition that exists on a very subconscious level between women, but still my goal has always been to like empower and uplift others. Even if I experience jealousy, I feel like jealousy is something that you can use as a source of motivation and inspiration for yourself, and not a vengeful desire to tear other people down, which I think is how jealousy can be expressed in an unhealthy way. Yeah, so I watched this video the other day, which I will link, and I recommend people watch it if you are dealing with this kind of dynamic. And I also had someone ask me on a TikTok live, what was this person to do now that someone she considers a best friend is hanging out with her enemy? Often bullying between women is indirect and it involves the avoidance of something versus actively doing something. So it could be eye rolling, it could be spreading rumors, passive aggressive digs at someone, hitting on your romantic partner, like creating a competition between women for a guy. Loser behavior, but yeah. Basically something that's not directly disruptive and that they can't be found guilty of, which would be like social isolation as well. You exist in a group, suddenly the group stops inviting you to events because of one person's decision to isolate you, or they come together and decide that they want to isolate you. The example that he gives is like, please stop hitting on my boyfriend. So if I had a romantic partner and another girl was like hitting on them and I would ask them not to do that, that person could be like, well, it's not my fault that your boyfriend is checking me out. Like, are you jealous? Are you insecure with how you look? Blah, blah, blah. So there's this plausible deniability. He talks about how this often happens in small groups of 1 to 5 versus groups from 5 to 15 are like much harder to control. So in a smaller group, there are limited resources. It can seem like there's more threat to power dynamic. This is why I think that it's not necessary to romanticize this sort of like Sex and the City group of 4 friend dynamic. I think that it's nice to like have that experience in your life, but don't feel like you've failed because you don't have this like a core group of 4 friends. So much of relationships has to do with compatibility, and a lot of compatibility is not obvious, not always on the surface. It can run very deeply into people's subconscious and they don't even have an awareness of their subconscious. So how could you? And vice versa. Being able to just accept the way that your relationships shift and change over time. And I think that a healthy amount of distance with you and the people that you are friends with is what allows longevity for friendships. When you have very small, tight-knit groups, it can be like a breeding ground for insecurity, competition, and passive aggressive behavior, especially when it comes to women. Another point that they talk about is moving you into the gray zone. So isolating you from the primary group. Like I said, maybe you have a group of 4 and 1 or 2 of the girls decide they don't like the 4th person, and then they start to organize activities with just the 3 of them, excluding you, and for no real reason, no tangible reason. But the reason is usually jealousy and envy, which can be really difficult for someone to clock if they have a pretty good handle on their own jealousy and envy. If you don't act in a way that's destructive in response to your jealousy and envy, it can be really confusing to be victimized by people who do act out on their jealousy and envy. An aggression inhibitor is a fear of consequences. So it's not about calling people out, but shaping an environment where there are consequences. And the key is having other friends, okay? If you're being isolated by these people, you don't double down and try to be included. You focus on other relationships where you feel supported, where you feel respected, where you have a good time and you're not under spiritual attack. You trigger the bully by making other friends and also having your own network that excludes them. And it's not even that you're doing it on purpose, it's just that they don't include you, so why would you include them in these other relationships that you have? To complete that game, they talk about how attractive women are likely to be bullies, but attractive women are also more likely to be bullied because they are an easy target. People will say, well, you have pretty privilege, everything is so easy for you because of this, so like why would anybody bully you? Well, people will bully you because they're jealous. There's a fear of sexual threat. For example, if you undergo a glow up, you can become a threat to potential mating prospects for the bully, and they will act out on you as a result of that. I think I kind of touched on this in my The Cost of Slaying is Haters. If you are someone that wants to improve in any facet of your life, whether that's your physical appearance, your self-esteem, your career, your education, your social circle, etc., you are likely to become the target of other people's passive aggression and jealousy, because something that's overlooked in relationships as well is how a lot of people prefer to be comfortable with what's familiar and they don't like their ego to be challenged. So you and this friend might have gotten along, or you might have met at a state where you were on a closer vibrational frequency, and you continuing to invest in yourself and forward movement, ascension in your awareness, in your self-esteem, in your confidence, that might have been happening at a pace that's different to your friend. You could have assumed that you doing this would also benefit them, that they are also doing the same thing. As time passes, you realize maybe you've outgrown them, or they fear that you have outgrown them, and in this new state that you exist in, you are a threat to them, and they try to sabotage the relationship to prove their insecurity rather than reconcile with it and like learn from what you've done to gain more confidence, to glow up, etc. So that's always really disappointing, because I think for me, I always assume that me doing well means that my friends get to do well as well, and vice versa. I want to be able to elevate the vibe inclusively, but you can't just do that on your own. You know, people need to also be pulling their weight too, and they will resent you if you stand out and they don't get to reap the benefits of it because they literally don't know how, because they haven't done the inner work that you have. That can be really confronting, and that's a really big part of like this girl female empowerment conversation that people overlook. You need to be aware of who you are connecting with and who you are being mutually supported by, because it cannot be one person doing all the work for everybody else. Everybody needs to contribute to their own empowerment and to societal empowerment generally. It's really easy to double down and focus on trying to save this person, trying to get this person on board, when in reality you have to live by example. You need to often distance yourself a little bit. It doesn't have to be a hard cutoff, and focus on relationships that have shared interest and value, the values being the most important part. He also talks about how to prevent female bullying, the bystander effect. A lot of people don't want to get involved, they don't want to get hurt too. If you see someone else being bullied, you can stand with the victim. You don't have to call the bully out, but you can let the victim know. If you ever want to join us for dinner, if you ever want to come hang out with me, like let me know. Never confront the bully, in my opinion. We'll get to that. Avoid emotional reaction, because this plays into the bully's games. If you blow up and start getting accusatory, you did this, they can just play dumb and be like, what are you talking about? That never happened. Oh my God, you're overreacting. They'll gaslight you the way that a man will gaslight you and say you're being emotional, you're unstable, are you insecure, and they'll flip it back on you. So emotional regulation is a superpower. Being able to like be aware and witty. Sometimes if you still have some stakes in the friendship group, you can say, oh yeah, I mean, you guys didn't invite me last time. It's okay because I did XYZ instead, but if you guys want to do this together, let me know, I would be down. Keep it light. Avoid being accusatory and direct in the way you confront. You need to fight fire with a different form of passive aggression, which is passive wit and sarcasm. You know, this isn't to say that people that are bullies are inherently evil. They're usually just insecure, and like some people do have a chance at redemption, but you don't need to like go out of your way for it, in my opinion. Especially as you get to like your late 20s and early 30s, it's like, who has the time to be acting this way? Don't you want to focus on like being hot and having fun and making money? He also emphasizes that the way to be impervious to their attacks is to get social skills and get other friends. Like I said, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. For some people, that is their destiny, but for most people, you will have different friends for different stages of your life, and the friends that carry through all different stages of your life, usually there is a variance in the level of closeness that you have and the amount of communication that you have. Don't assume that having a close friend requires constant contact. It requires constant respect and support. That means making yourself available for each other when you need each other, not this like codependent, everyday texting, minute updates on your life. When you get older and you start working and you have more responsibility, you don't have time to like dissect every little thing that happens to you with another person, in my opinion. Or you need friends to be there for you, to support you through bigger life events and shifts, or just like vibe checks and just having a sounding board. It's not about everyday therapy in text messages. If you're doing that, I don't know, I feel that your energy could be better spent building community elsewhere and like having a hobby, rather than just feeling this false sense of productivity through constant communication with a friend. So for me, now that I reflect on different experiences that I've had in my life with this dynamic, I think that the philosophy of being hot and having fun has protected me, especially in the last few years. When I was younger, I wasn't as clear on this philosophy. It's developed mostly in my late 20s. As I say, you can define being hot and having fun for yourself, but for me, it involves being in mutually supportive and respectful relationships. We're being hot and having fun together, okay? If I'm in a relationship or in a situation where I don't feel like I'm being respected, where there are passive aggressive comments being made at me, where I'm being socially isolated, and you can always tell on a subconscious level, but you don't know how to clock it, right? It's passive aggressive, it's indirect. So there is plausible deniability. If you were to call them out, you know that they would deny it, even though you feel and you see what's happening. If I feel that way, okay, well, I'm going to focus on my friendships where I don't feel like this. I'm going to focus on my hobbies. I'm going to do things that generate that feeling rather than insisting a situation that is not that become that. Because at one stage, it was that. So I know that it could be that. And the fact that it's not right now, I just have to accept. And it's giving me an indicator that there are other areas of my life that I could be focusing on. Being hot and having fun, very important. I feel like when people have tried to socially isolate me for no reason, in my eyes, but I have been told it's because they are jealous for whatever reason, which I don't understand, because it's almost always people that I have really gone out of my way to look after or to include or to share like life-changing opportunities with them. So I'm not jealous of them, but for whatever reason, they can be jealous of you. When people like that try to socially isolate someone like me, it's ironic because it's like part of the jealousy would come from my ability to have other friends. So how could you isolate me when I can't be isolated? Okay, I've got friends everywhere. I'm not at a shortage. I think learning to be alone is really important because it means that whether you have friends or not, you're going to be okay. Because being alone does not mean that you were lonely. I can't remember the last time I felt lonely. I am out too much, if anything, for my personality and my social needs. But I feel like that has also protected me from when I'm not being included. It doesn't affect me as much because I enjoy my own company. And I can also direct that energy towards nurturing other friendships where maybe I wasn't as close with them, but I'm now realizing we have more in common and we are not passive aggressive towards each other. I'm being directed towards those relationships rather than this environment where no matter what I do, I was going to be victimized at some point. A lot of people have social masks that they create in order to gain something from having a relationship with someone. And what I have learnt, just because someone is good at receiving does not mean that they are good at contributing. So these people will shift and shape who they are to be compatible with you, and they benefit from association with you and your generosity towards them. But that doesn't mean that they have generosity towards you. You know, these are two different skills and not everybody has them and not everybody is interested in having them. So if you find out that you are in this dynamic where you feel that you have contributed to this relationship, but you're realizing now that their relationship to you is more superficial based and more what they can do to get something from you, but not actually contribute anything beyond that, you're being protected by the universe. It's okay to be sad because you expected or assumed that you guys were on the same page and you had the same values, but in reality, maybe you just had the same interests. And also diffusing your awareness around that will make more clear to you certain red flags about the way that they speak, the way that they act, the way that they treat other people, and how this is just in line with who they are. It's not personal to you. Your value and who you are is not less valuable because this person is being mean to you. If anything, you are a threat to them because anybody that's above you is not coming for you. You might see them as an equal, but their insecurities deep in their subconscious makes them feel like they are beneath you, okay? And they are just playing out that subconscious insecurity on you because they perceive you as a threat. Even if you don't go out of your way to be a threat to others, or you don't see the hierarchy that they have in their mind, that's not your problem. The girl that was asking me on live, what does she do? Do not confront, as we have previously discussed. I feel like vulnerability and like telling people your feelings, overrated. This idea that you need to tell people how you feel, that they've done you wrong, blah, 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 Overrated, 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 overrated. I do believe in sharing feelings when you are in a safe, mutually respectful relationship with someone. But if someone has crossed the uncrossable line and has started acting out their insecurities on you, they have created a hostile environment and it is not safe to share your feelings. They are going to weaponize them against you in order to double down on their position and make themselves feel like the victim rather than take responsibility for the fact that they are a bully and trying to victimize you. You know what I mean? So in any type of relationship dynamic where it is hostile, I don't believe in sharing your feelings in order to appeal to a bully, because the whole point of a bully, or what creates a bully, is an inability to process their own feelings, and then they project it onto other people and they weaponize it against others. If they were able to reconcile with their envy and their jealousy, you wouldn't be in this unsafe emotional environment, and you wouldn't feel like you needed to distance yourself from this relationship, or you needed to reassess how this relationship fits into your life. So personally, I don't believe in confrontation, even if it is a situation like your best friend is now hanging out with someone who they know on some level they shouldn't be hanging out with in order to maintain your friendship. You just acknowledge it, and you can maintain a surface level relationship with them if you are really uncomfortable with them being friends because you know how the other person really is. Maybe your friend and your enemy are destined for each other more than you and your friend actually are. You're allowed to grieve that relationship, but you don't need to blame yourself, and you don't need to assume that you'll never make a new friend. If anything, you're being freed up energy and attention towards pursuits that are going to be more beneficial to you and more nurturing for your emotional and spiritual well-being. Because ultimately, like I said, compatibility is so important when it comes to relationships. It's not just about the things that you say that you like or the place that you're in or whatever. Like, values and beliefs run so deep into people's core and their subconscious, and because you as an individual are not necessarily aware of all these subconscious things that are happening in your mind, because it's 90% of your brain activity. I can only clock what's on a conscious level, and through meditation and journaling can I start to pull things out of the subconscious, which not everybody does, okay? Not everybody is doing hot girl habits the way that I'd recommend. So much of compatibility can't be clocked on a conscious level, but it is always being expressed in some way, and being okay with the fact that your journey diverges from this person, even though on a conscious level you hoped that it would maintain itself. It's okay. You don't need to know what the reason is. And oftentimes after like a few months or after enough time passes, you will realize how incompatible you really were. And that'll be a whole other thing you have to deal with. But it's okay. You know, that's just part of life. Nobody has perfect relationships at all times, or if ever. Nobody is perfect. So reconciling with that part of your ego, I think, is really important, and that's what these sorts of experiences give us the opportunity to do. Because if everything was just peachy all the time, there would be no opportunity for challenge or learning. And unfortunately, in order to learn, we must face challenge and we must use effort. Accepting that rather than resisting it, allowing space for the feelings that you have. I can be disappointed that my friendship with someone didn't work out, but also excited about the prospect of spending time with people who actually appreciate me, and vice versa. You can also get to a point where you're just like, thank God I didn't go any further. I was actually being protected, because you watch that person crash out with other people, or you have people coming out of the woodwork telling you that they were worried about you for being friends with that person. That's always the craziest, when you find out that like the person that you thought really highly of actually has a shit reputation with everybody else you know, and everyone else is just waiting for them to crash out in your relationship so you can all start a support group. Crazy. You're not alone if you've ever experienced this. Just because it's not spoken about that much doesn't mean that it's not happening. And I think that especially for women who want to empower themselves, empower others, and be able to build a sense of community with women, which is really, really important in my opinion, and something I will discuss in a later video, the importance of women-centered spaces. You need to understand that this is going to happen. It's inevitable, because the way that the patriarchy works, the way that misogyny, internalized misogyny works, and just the way that like humanity works. It's not anyone's fault that this happens, but it is people's responsibility to take accountability when they are the perpetrator, or take accountability and be responsible for how they deal with being victimized. You know, if people bully you, that means you have something they want. So you can let that stroke your ego. I think it's crazy because sometimes you feel like you're very much at the beginning of your journey and other people are treating you like you're on top of a mountain, and it's like, babe, I've got so much further to go. Why are you jealous of me? I am not famous enough for these problems. Some people's awareness and some people's like standard is just different to yours. You can be flattered by the fact that these people feel that you are a threat to them, and rather than trying to get on your level or connect with you in an authentic way, they try to ostracize you, but then actually just do it to themselves. You're not coming after someone who is less popular or doesn't have the potential to be more popular than you. Don't forget that. It took me a really long time to learn that, but yeah, being hot and having fun will protect you against people like this, because as soon as you clock that something that was hot and having fun is no longer hot and having fun, redirect your energy towards those things. That is the North Star. You are shifting and weaving from other people's bullshit and focusing on taking responsibility for your own. You will naturally meet the right people who appreciate you for who you are, as long as you are thinking not just in terms of what you receive from others, but also what you contribute. Let me know what you thought of this video. Share your experience in the comments so we can start a support group for anyone that has been a victim of bullying, especially girl on girl crime. I want women to come together and empower each other and change the way that society operates. So you also need to integrate the dark parts of femininity and the toxic parts of femininity in that process. Okay, we can't ignore the fact that sometimes women can be their own worst enemy to progress for women generally, but we will create progress as a result of acknowledging that and learning how to deal with it in a way that maintains our dignity. Share your experience, share your thoughts and feelings. Let me know what you thought of this video. Stay hot and having fun. Drink lots of water. Tell your friends and family you love them. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. More videos to come. Love you lots.